In terms of the sedate members, if you hear your name, can you confirm your attendance, please? Councillor Reid.
Here.
Councillor McMahon.
Airline, thanks.
Councillor Cowan.
Here.
Councillor Linton.
Here.
Councillor Barton.
Here, thanks, Lynn.
Councillor Douglas.
Here, Lynn.
Councillor Ingram.
Here, thanks, Lynn.
Councillor Maitland.
Here.
Councillor Mabin.
Here, thanks, Lynn.
Councillor Watts.
Good morning, Lynn. I'm here.
We have an apology this morning from Councillor Filson. Dr. David Lewis.
Yes, I'm here, thanks.
Babs Mowat.
Yes, yes, I'm here.
Hazel Malacotti.
Yes, thanks, Lynn.
And we have apology from John Semple. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Lynn. Okay, item 1 is the declaration of interest. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Just for transparency, as I always do when it's anything planning related, at item 4, development plan scheme, as members will be aware, I am a chartered town planner and a member of the Royal Town Planning Institute. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, if that's the case, we're on to item 2E, and that's the policy review schedule, and over to Amanda.
Thanks, Chair, and good morning, members. The purpose of this report is to recommend to Cabinet proposed changes to employment policies, which are detailed in paragraph 2. The background is laid out in paragraphs 3 through to 5, which details the policy review schedule. The main report, members will notice there's a significant amount of changes. Some of these are administrative, some strengthen and some give further clarity, and others are in relation to the Employment Act 2025. First policy is career break policy. As I say, a number of administrative changes, but noting at 13.1 it's been updated to remove the option to fill the vacancy resulting in a career break on a permanent basis. An option in section 14.1 confirming that if there's a review, service review or restructure, would only be circumstances in which the employee wouldn't return to their own post. Paragraph 8 details the changes to the grievance policy, and these are mainly administrative changes. Paragraph 9 details changes to the menopause policy, which includes in section 5 premature ovarian insufficiency statement and additional guidance. In addition to this, as part of the Employment Rights Act 2025, we are developing evidence-based action plans to support employees through the menopause, and this will be developed and implemented within the next 12 months. At paragraph 10, the Women's Health Policy has been updated at paragraph 8.3 to add a paragraph on surgical menopause and linked to frequently asked questions. And appendix 2, an employee guide on coping with endometriosis, help and self-help, and endometriosis champions have been added for additional support. Paragraph 11 details the changes to the maternity, adoption, paternity and shared parental leave, noting that at section 11 has been expanded for the neonatal care leave from 4 weeks paid up to 12 weeks paid. It also has at section 13 the introduction of the bereaved partners paternity leave, and sections 29 and 30 have removed the reference to continuous service due to the introduction of the legislation for the 6th of April 2026. Paragraph 12, the dignity at work policy. Throughout this policy, harassment and sexual harassment have been referenced separately. Therefore, there's a new section 9 based on sexual harassment. Paragraph 13, gender-based violence, noting that section 15 of this policy has been added on intimate image abuse to take account of misuse of existing and emerging technology. And at paragraph 14 details the changes to the alcohol and substance use policy, noting that section 8.5 information has been added relating to prescribed medical cannabis. And paragraph 15 details the whistleblowing policy is currently undergoing a full review. However, in recognition of the changes in respect to the Employment Rights Act 2025, it notes the 2 changes that will take account from the 6th of April 2026. The implications are at table 18. And I would note at paragraph 21, our trade union colleagues have been involved and have agreed the changes to the policies. And I would just like to note a thanks. As you can see, there's been many policies, and our trade union colleagues give us ongoing support in reviewing these policies. The recommendations are laid out at paragraph 2 and happy to take any questions.
Very much, Amanda. Councillor Maitland.
Thank you,
Well.
Chair. Amanda, I'd just like to say thank you very much for the paper that's in front of us today. And I think with it being Endometriosis Awareness Month, I have to say something towards this paper, and I will keep it brief. However, I was speaking with my colleague Linda this morning as well, and it's been a long, long journey from getting the tax taken off of sanitary products to introducing free products here in this council, the first to do so in Scotland, and again to the endometriosis embedded policies that we can see now in front of us. It is wrong to tell girls and women to expect pain and to manage pain and to dismiss their pain. And I think that if you had told me as a 13-year-old girl that I would be sitting here discussing things like this and people would know what endometriosis was, I wouldn't believe you. I was 17 years waiting on a diagnosis. The diagnosis is now down to 7 years, and what a difference that has made. And I would like to thank all my colleagues over the years here who have put up with me moaning and banging the drum, but it's good to see that this is now recognised worldwide. And if I could just end on one thing, endometriosis is not a gynecological problem. It is a whole body problem, it is an immune system problem, and it affects all parts of your body. This is not something that hurts for a couple of days, a month. So it might not feel like it, but I am absolutely delighted to be here today seeing things like this just pass through in front of our eyes in our papers as normal. Thank you.
That's well said. Councillor Douglas Barry.
Thank you. And just I would absolutely second everything Councillor Maitland has said. I know that a chamber has come together when it comes to these kind of particular matters, and thank her for her role in championing endometriosis. Leader, just in terms of page 5, paragraph 11, the maternity, adoption, paternity and shared paternal leave policy, just really welcome the update in terms of neonatal care. Now, I understand that the UK government legislation states that care, that leave can be taken if the baby or babies have been admitted to neonatal care within 28 days of birth. I take it we are just following the policy. And just obviously for clarity, I believe the policy obviously kicked in last year, didn't it? I take it we're just updating our schedule, but we have been adopting the UK government policy since then. Thanks.
For you, Chair? Yep, I can confirm that we are following the government guidance and we have adopted it from last year.
Thanks, Amanda. Councillor Ingram.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to echo Councillor Maitland and thank Amanda for the paper and all the hard work that her and her team do to keep us up to date with legislation and ensure that we, as an employer, are supporting our staff where we can, and recognising conditions like endometriosis, which is very, very important and something that has taken a long time, too long to actually do so. But thank you.
Still, anyone else? Okay, can we go to the recommendations? All 9 of them. Can we agree to the recommendations? Okay, that's the end of the E items. Let the education people go. Okay, now on to item 3, and that's it. Ayrshire Growth Deal Capital Projects Change Management Request, and over to David McDowell. David.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval for a change management request which is being submitted to the Scottish and UK Government in relation to the Ayrshire Innovation Park and the core project. Paragraphs 5 through to 14 outline the challenges experienced in delivering the Ayrshire Innovation Park and the demand which has been identified for the plots and proposed units. Cabinet on the 28th of January this year was advised that through the East Ayrshire Performance Report that the Ayrshire Innovation Park is currently forecasting a potential overspend of up to £5 million against the approved budget. From the original estimated forecast using the Building Cost Information Services, there has been a sustained increase in material prices, labour costs, utility and energy costs, along with supply chain pressures resulting in construction inflation being well above the indices assumed within the funding settlement. This has been exacerbated by the additional abnormal costs associated with the development of the site, including extensive cut and fill operations to achieve developable platforms and compliant site levels to deliver the associated plots within the site to allow those to be pre-sold. Also, the utility infrastructure improvements, which were not known at the time when the original budgets was established, have been significantly higher due to these inflationary pressures. As members will be aware, the project has been adversely impacted by unfunded inflationary pressures that have emerged since the grant was awarded by the project funders in 2019. These current challenges reflect the difficulty that the private sector has in committing to investing in this type of development, which has led to historic market failure and the need for public sector investment through the growth deal. Paragraphs 15 through to 24 sets out the proposals to proceed with a multi-site delivery approach for the core vocational skills and training academy across 3 thematic themes and hubs: core in the community, core in industry and core in education. And the report looks to remit officers to proceed with developing designs and submission of the full business cases in relation to these proposals. As members will recall from the original grant funding for core, that the UK government funding is ring-fenced for the research and innovation proposals, and the draft that we have here today looks at 3 vocational training academies which align this funding to the agreed criteria. While the funding allocation for the 3 vocational training academies will be agreed by the UK government, these proposals are that the Cumnock Juniors Enterprise Stadium will be allocated estimated £2 million of capital investment, which will be provided to support the additional external funding, along with £150,000 of building digital capital funding, where along with these combined funds, we'll see in a large proposal for the Skills Academy on the first floor of the building, which will deliver an anchor tenant between Monday to Friday for the Skills Academy at 9 o'clock to 5, with the evening and weekend use for community use. At Emergency One, the campus there, we are looking to support a training academy dedicated into EV and hydrogen delivery, which was estimated at £1.5 million of capital funding allocated, along with £150,000 of building digital capital funding, along with the investment in Doon Valley SL99, which is targeted around £750,000 of capital and £93,000 of building digital capital funding. Members, this is a stronger proposition for local residents that is more suited to local requirements rather than the original proposal of the Research and Innovation Centre, which could have been much more university focused. And unfortunately, as mentioned in Cabinet previously and the previous reports, that the university has pivoted in terms of their proposals for investment in this type of facility. This revised approach prioritises workforce development, industry-aligned training with STEM education and career pathway development to ensure local communities are equipped with the skills and qualifications required to access high quality and sustainable employment within the low carbon economy. This model is aimed to maximise financial stability and value for money through sustainable reducing operational costs, providing a self-sustainable revenue model and providing additional capital funding to deliver enhanced demonstrator projects. The proposals will also improve community access and inclusion, supporting a just transition, and increase delivery coverage across the Cumnock and Doon Valley area, and tackle depopulation and economic decline and support a just transition. It will also look at addressing the regional skills gap and drive business growth and innovation, target response to industry demand and de-risk this transition. It will also look to create these pathways through the 3 core projects through the industry, community and education. Key partners include secondary school education provided through the STEM curriculum, with vocational and further education delivered by Ayrshire College and UWS, all aligned with businesses. This work will be underpinned by the investment in all secondary schools through the Whiteley Skills and Employability Fund, where the Doon Valley and Robert Burns Academies will have a range of foundation apprenticeships, including performing engineering operations, engineering foundation apprenticeships at upper levels, hospitality, social services and creative and digital media. In terms of paragraphs 25 through to 29. This sets out the project impacts with reallocating a portion of the funding originally identified for the Core Research and Innovation Centre to deliver core legacy projects across communities and the council estate, and to agree flexibility of the Ayrshire Growth Deal funding across East Ayrshire projects, transferring up to £5 million from Core to the Ayrshire Innovation Part. The Core project will also benefit from £993,000 of Building Digital Capital Fund to support digital innovation within the Pathfinder, Legacy and the 3 vocational and training academies. The redistribution of the original £15.8 million ring fence for the Centre of Excellence means that the local area will now benefit from an increased allocation towards legacy projects directly benefiting immediate localities. This means that £6.55 million of additional funding is targeted towards legacy projects, which will have a direct positive benefit to our residents and young people, with £5 million, as mentioned previously, allocated to the Ayrshire Innovation Park. The redistribution of £5 million towards the Ayrshire Innovation Park will sustain the regional jobs to be created through the Ayrshire Growth Deal, contributing to a total of 7,000 estimated jobs across the overall deal. The creation of these jobs is still within East Ayrshire, and of which some may be filled by residents from the Cumbernauld Valley, creating higher value jobs. Construction of the proposed unit mix at the Ayrshire Innovation Park without reducing floor space allows for an optimised range of unit sizes to support businesses all sizes across the authority and creating the first purpose-built food-grade campus in the southwest of Scotland. If funding is not secured to deliver the proposed proposals as promoted, then we will require to compromise the unit mix. It should be noted that the businesses engagement is quite substantial at present, and we have a steady demand for renting these units, with 3 out of 5 service plots under the heads of terms with a single business. The implications are set out in paragraphs 30 through to 43, and I would draw your attention to paragraphs 34 in respect of the sustainable operating model and the use of the Lettons Wind Farm funding specific to skills delivery, and the 9cc additional funding to support local skills interventions from the wider ranging wind farms to bridge the subsidy requirements to deliver the rural skills training needs supported by Ayrshire College, UWS and other partners. It is therefore recommended that flexibility of the Ayrshire Growth Deal funding across the regional projects is delivered in East Ayrshire is permitted to assist with meeting a funding gap within the Ayrshire Innovation Park from the overall Growth Deal allocation. The proposals are set out in recommendation 2, Chair, to deliver a multi-site vocational training academy which will bring significant benefits to local people and businesses alike. Similarly, increasing investment in legacy projects across communities and council buildings will support the council's climate change strategy and support our communities in just transition. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions within the report. Thanks.
Thanks, David. That's that paper. I think, there might be some disappointment, particularly in the south of the authority in terms of what's happened to Core, but I suppose we are where we are. And I think the intention here is, we've got issues that we need to have at Ayrshire, the AIP, and we're still delivering in terms of the outcomes and the objectives. That's the intentions behind both the projects. And I think, in terms of the 3 projects there, that's good news. I've been down to 2 of them anyway in the last couple of weeks, and it's great to see what's going on, delivering what we're trying to do, high value jobs, and I think that will be done in those 3 projects. So I think there's an acceptance of where we are, and I think this is the best way we can proceed with trying to deliver the outcomes that were intended right at the start. Councillor Maywood, Linda.
Thank you, Leader. I totally hear what you're saying there, and I'm afraid we're going to have to agree to disagree on that. I do welcome the proposal for the hubs up in or down in the south of the authority, absolutely, and I would fully support these. However, if I take you to recommendation 3, and this is obviously the one that I'm going to query, this is 20% almost of the overall budget for Core, and it just seems again that we're looking to redirect a substantial resource towards Kilmarnock, and that's what it is. It raises concerns with me about the original commitment that we made about delivering much needed economic support to the south of the authority. My understanding has always been that CORE was supposed to deliver in Connaught and Doon Valley area. I would like to revisit the original papers and decisions if that's possible. We've discussed depopulation in this chamber so many times in the past wee while. Our deputy leader has mentioned it, I don't know how many times, and talked about the significance on numerous occasions. Okay, so given this context, it's essential that we receive clear justification potentially relocating funds away from the very communities that are facing the greatest demographic and economic pressures. It is harder for them. I'm a Ballochmyle councillor, right? I see what's going on up there. I'm also aware that the residents in the villages across my ward, and I'm sure probably Ward 8 and Ward 9 as well, have been led to expect employment and training opportunities. Yeah, okay, we're still giving them that. But if we've got this extra 5 million that we can give to something else, should that not be set aside to do further projects in the areas that probably need it most in the full of East Ayrshire? Thanks.
Thanks for Councillor Litney.
Yeah, thanks. And I hear what you're saying, Linda, and maybe to go some way to answering it. I was delighted to be able to join Davy down at Emergency 1 last week for a site visit, and I have to declare a wee interest here. They were good enough to give my younger boy Adam his first job when he finished university, so I'm always keen to see how well they're doing it, and they're doing splendidly well. They're really keen to work with the council. It's getting to the stage now that they need people, young people, to train in-house because they're desperate to expand. There's really good jobs coming on stream down there, and I think with that partnership with the council and David and his team working with them and training through Linda, I think there's an opportunity there for significant number of young people to come out of school and go straight into good training programmes leading to extremely good careers and what is a mushrooming business on the park and the overspend. I mean, a lot has changed since 2019. You see the costs have gone up, and given the scale, I mean, I drive past it quite regularly, and it's a huge site, and the labelling work that's been on there is significant. And just as a wee final on the use of the wind farm money to go to part fund this. I know we've discussed this at the Grants Committee in the past, and I think this has been one of the most significant changes we've made for what is effectively capital spend moving into this. And I think, I was delighted to support the paper when it was presented, and I look forward to a similar paper coming to a future Grants Committee, because I think it promotes an interesting discussion.
Thanks, Ian. Councillor Watts, Neil.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, David, for the report. I mean, my view is that we are taking a bold step forward for East Ayrshire with this report by realigning our Ayrshire Growth Deal projects. We are not just shifting the budgets, we are choosing pragmatism over performance and local people over distant dogmas. To be fair, for too long, the national conversation has been dominated by the net zero targets that we often feel disconnected from the reality of our streets and shops, while we chase expensive, unproven green fantasies that risk leaving communities behind. East Ayrshire in this is taking a different route in a sense. We are, I think, being honest, the original plans for a research hub no longer really fit in, I don't think, with the world that we live in. Instead, we are building, instead of building a monument to net zero in the form of a costly research centre, by decentralising that investment, by pivoting the core project into a multi-site vocational training academy, in my view, we are putting tools directly in the hands of people in the Cumnock, Dalmellington and Doon Valley areas. We're moving away from that theoretical green target and moving it towards practical skills that I think will actually lead to jobs.
Furthermore, by addressing the £5 million gap at the Ayrshire Innovation Park, we are ensuring that Moorfield becomes the powerhouse of local industry, which will help the whole of East Ayrshire, the south and the north. We are choosing to invest in the physical infrastructure, the roads, the utilities and the workspace that will allow Scottish businesses to grow right now, rather than waiting for the green revolution that always seems to be around about 10 years away. The change in management request, in my view, is a victory for common sense. We are protecting the taxpayer from inflationary madness and ensuring that every pound of this growth deal is delivering tangible benefit. We are building an Ayrshire that is resilient, skilled and focused and on economic reality, not just environmental rhetoric. So as far as I'm concerned, let's get on, let's get these projects moving and let's move forward. So thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Neil. Councillor Cowan, then
I think Councillor McMahon
was Councillor
was in
McMahon
front of
first, I
me,
don't-
sorry.
Councillor McMahon, Jim.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bevan's right. I don't know how many times I've spoke about depopulation, as I prefer to say stabilisation of the population now, and regrowing that population. So times have moved quick. I think technology's moved a lot faster than what the council does with the projects for core. If we look at what that 24.5 million, when we initially got it in 2019, is worth now, I think it's in the region of about £17 million. I'd always said that was not no precious about the facility and that original core plan. I think in hindsight would have been the waste of £16 million. I think our delivery model now is more appropriate to set out, especially having the base down in the Doon Valley as well. When it was first mooted about moving the £5 million, I was absolutely against it. We have plans in the South Authority, and I don't suppose it's more, as Councillor Watt spoke about green innovative stuff, it's more about regeneration. But that's 2 or 3 years away, yeah. So looking at where we need the money just now, as I said, I was totally against it to start with, but on reflection, I think where the need and the demand is currently, I think it is the right thing to do. I'm given assurances by the added paragraph in paragraph 4, and it just finishes off with, as well as the emerging work to develop strategic approach to the population rebalance that will be presented to Cabinet and Council in April 26. We know we have a lot of work to do in the South Authority to stabilise that population. It's about regeneration and growth, but I don't think the £5 million in additional core projects would have delivered that regeneration and growth. As I said, we've moved on a lot for 2019, the emergence of the 9cc group, and how in collaboration we can work with various other organisations to deliver that regeneration. I think in the wider scale and the wider picture is probably more important than to deliver another project. The initial core and the Centre of Excellence, along with the 2 demonstrator houses, we can see demonstrator houses all over the UK now. We can go down to Salford, we can go up to 5. There's plenty there that we go into, rather than build and spend the millions on them to build them. So for me, although it was a difficult decision, I think it's a realistic decision. It's the right decision to make at this particular time. It's looking for, I'm not going to ask for assurances, but I know by paragraph 4, we will tackle the emerging work that has to be done to fulfil that strategic vision as we travel forward in the South Authority. So I'm quite happy to accept the recommendations currently as they sit, but look forward to the discussion at Council and how that regeneration of the South Authority is going to, the vision for it, and where we can take that forward from here on in.
Thanks, Jim. Councillor Cowan,
Thank you, Chair. And obviously I realise this isn't an education paper, but I do want to add some supportive comments to recommendation 1 for the Vocational Skills and Training Academy. For me, this definitely is the direction of travel this council should be taking. My understanding is the first training session for 9 local mechanics is already underway at Emergency 1, with plans for a further 30 places in the coming weeks. So this is very, very encouraging, and obviously the focus is in the Dalmellington and the Cumnock area. So any future aspirations we have in this area have my full support. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. I suppose, you know, in terms of there is colleagues have said there, you know, it's in the recommendations there that, you know, we want to, this is delivering the outcomes within the envelope of the Ayrshire growth deal money, and that this achieves it. I think there will be as I said, recommendation for, we'll have a deep dive into issues of rural depopulation at the full council, and just looking to see how we can address some of the issues there that we've been speaking quite considerable over the last few months and years. Members, it would be my intention to move the paper as is. Or sorry, do officers want to comment before I move to recommendations? No. David, do you want to?
There was a couple of things mentioned there, Chair, and just to take up Councillor Maven's point about the original report. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot that's been said about where we originally focused on. I mean, we're having to make a difficult decision here based on the current financial position. Members will be aware of the council decision about, you know, the only other aspect of this is to go to, you know, to borrow the money, and we've heard Joe McLaughlin highlighting what the implications for that are in the past. So that is the kind of realistic position, and obviously we are trying to deliver a regional solution here to what is you know, practical problem. In terms of the investment in the south, I mean, the depopulation issue is quite significant, and one that we are taking, you know, to a point where we are looking at a regional under the regional economic strategy. It's an issue for the south area and other parts of Ayrshire. We are in a situation where we have looked to take that on at a regional level to see how we can help and support with that, and look at other external funding to proactively support you know, repopulation in some of the most challenging areas where there's difficulty in travel and getting access to real jobs. So this proposal here today is to look at working with the secondary schools. It's working with the further education partners. It's working with businesses, and it's looking to actually get some traction on the ground where we can get you know, real jobs and help and support for local residents and help them to stay in the local area. As Councillor Kevin and Linton had mentioned, the Emergency 1 proposals that were you know, launched last week were just highlighted the you know, the ambition to do specific design training for not just Emergency 1 but other you know, vehicle providers within the you know, the local area and the wider region, that will help to provide that skills and capacity that takes us forward. We are obviously, you know, acutely aware that these businesses are while there's the aerospace sector's working, you know, positively in bringing in jobs in the region, and that's to be commended. We are in a situation where we have to make sure that the skills and the capacity is met within the other foundation businesses that are within our local economy, to ensure that those businesses have the right skill set to work away, and we don't lose people either out with the region or out, you know, to the centre of the aerospace sector. So it is a you know, has a difficult paper to bring today. I appreciate that nobody wants to see that, but I think there is an opportunity. We have taken forward the pathway at core, and we've, of that £5.1 million, we've brought in external funding of 1.6, and that's a credit to Fiona and Dermot and our team, that they are punching above their weight in terms of that inward investment. We continue to do that both for that project and others, so we will be bringing back proposals as we can establish where external funding can be delivered in all of the projects to provide a kind of solution. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, David. I think, Neil, I think what we have here is just a pragmatic response to how we can continue to deliver outcomes within our strategy and, within the envelope of the Ayrshire Growth Deal funding. I think there is issues that I think you're right to raise in terms of where we are with depopulation, and I think issues like connectivity and infrastructure can be maybe be looked in when we go to the council paper in April and have that deep dive and to explore where we can really make significant changes to arrest that decline in terms of the population. But I think for today, I think this is a reasonable approach, and I'll move the paper. Can I get a sentence to me? So, Barry.
Thank you, Leader. And just while I know all the comments that have been made, I think it's right to say that the core programme envisaged a number of years ago is not the core programme of today and wouldn't be and shouldn't be. So I do absolutely welcome the hubs and the model that has been proposed. What I think we do need to look at, and I would hope taken from this, and we can look at it perhaps at another forum that will be coming up shortly, is around particularly transportation, public transportation for the areas in the south. And we know there are communities that have limited buses, Merkip being one of them, or no buses, Sorn being one of them, to make sure that we can get young people in particular out with their communities, whether that be elsewhere in the Cumnock and Doon Valley area, but also if they're coming to Kilmarnock, if there's opportunities at the Ayrshire Innovation Park. So whilst I know the contents of the paper, I do share my colleague Councillor Mabin's disappointment in terms of this. However, I know that we need to react to a funding situation now involving the Ayrshire Innovation Park, but I do want to make sure that we do have a proper look. We've got the full council meeting that will come in April, that in terms of clause 4, in terms of the recommendations, we can investigate further, and I welcome that. But I do think we do need to have a further look, particularly around transportation, public transportation. I know that's something that's certainly from my group's perspective been close to our hearts, and I know it's shared by other members across the chamber in relation to how we improve community transport and public transport in the area. Thanks.
No, absolutely. I think connectivity and infrastructure will be key to some of the actions that we hopefully look to tackle when that paper comes to the full council, and all 32 members will have the ability to contribute there. Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo the comments made there, both by yourself and Councillor Douglas. Obviously, the transportation, the connectivity in our communities is an issue in certain areas, but it's a real-time barrier to young people who perhaps don't drive, and there may either be no bus in their area or very, very limited buses. So it can be the difference between someone getting employment or getting a long time career start. It's real life chances here, and it's all based on the transportation. So that's definitely an area that I know we've been looking at, we've been talking about, but it's becoming increasingly more important for some of the economic development areas that we want to actually try and be a catalyst for communities. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So, Peter Mark. Yeah.
Thanks. I just want to come in this. I've been listening to the debate quite closely, and I think the disappointment of the funding aside, I think the clear thing about this is the South Authority was the ones that kept the lights on during the coal mine. There was no just transition for those communities during the 80s and 90s as the coal industry was decimated. And it's really important that this core project delivers as these new emerging technologies and renewables come on board, that the workforce have got the skills there to embrace them. And that will help with the depopulation and hopefully drive down unemployment. So support the paper.
Thanks. No, I think that's a really fair point. I think that's a point that needs to be made nationally, just in terms of our communities there. Okay, Ian.
Thanks, Chair. It's just given the comments clearly on the paper that will come back to full council in April, coming from colleagues in my own service, and again to reassure the councillors that have mentioned infrastructure and the issues of transport. That is very much a prominent feature, and the strategic approach that we'll take to the depopulation and the population rebalance. Certainly infrastructure, transport is very prominent in that paper. I think that will be a helpful discussion at council in April. Chair, thanks.
Thanks very much, Ian. Okay, if there's no one any otherwise minded, can we agree the recommendations? Okay, and now going to item 4, which is the development plan scheme for 2026, and over to Karen Purvis.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to present to Cabinet the Development Plan Scheme 2026 and to seek approval to publish it. Following the background set out at paragraph 3, paragraphs 4 to 9 of the report set out the progress that the team have made completing work associated with LDP2 and towards LDP3. This includes the adoption of guidance, early public engagement, helping communities with local place plans alongside colleagues in East Ayrshire Leisure Trust, work on the place efficiency assessment, topic papers, and working with the Local Development Plan Members Officers Working Group. Detail on the scheme for 2026 is set out in paragraphs 10 to 14 and in full in Appendix 1. As paragraph 11 sets out, the programme has moved back 9 months due to a number of factors, including benchmarking work with other local authorities and the Local Development Plan team working below full staffing capacity. The Scottish Government Local Development Plan guidance states that every planning authority in Scotland should have a new style local development plan in place by May 2028. The programming in Table 1 anticipates that this will not be met by around 4 months. While this is not ideal, it is important that the development plan scheme is realistic in the expectations it sets. It is also clear from liaising with other planning authorities through the Heads of Planning Scotland network and in discussions with the Scottish Government, the East Ayrshire Council will be far from the only local authority in this position. However, we remain in a relatively healthy position in terms of the robustness of its development plan, and by the anticipated new adoption date, the current local development plan will only be around 4 months beyond its intended 5-year lifespan, which will not create significant problems in terms of the primacy of the development plan. Officers continue to look at ways to accelerate the plan process and will, where possible, look to bring milestones forwards. In addition to working on the local development plan, paragraph 14 sets out the work that is recommenced on the regional spatial strategy as a key lever in progressing the ambitions of the regional economic strategy. Paragraph 15 sets out the next steps, which will include allowing for a 3-week consultation on the participation strategy of the development plan scheme. The implications are set out in paragraphs 16 to 28 and the recommendations at paragraph 2. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Karen. Do you have any questions for Councillor Burton?
It's no question. It's not a question, Leader. It's just comments. So for those in the aviation industry, there's a saying, and it's Councillor McGee will probably be sitting there, no, he can't comment, but it's get it right first time. So take your time, get it right, and you don't have to repeat the process again. So the slippage for me, I'm not overly concerned. I think we've got a robust development plan in place. It's only 2 years old. It will see us for years to come. Definitely the best people to shape our communities are the people who live and work here. And it's absolutely vital that this evidence reflects their views. So I know our planning officers, they've been out there, they've been out there at gala days, they've been in their schools, the evidence, the gathering has been fantastic, and I'd really like to thank them for the work they've done for that. And I'm really looking forward to the results of the local place plans, and I know that's going to be the focus of the next members and officer working group. So I'd just like to pass on my thanks for the hard work that the planning department have done. Thanks.
I think that's a point well made, and I think we'd all echo that. Councillor Cowney-Lyon.
Thank you, Chair, and get it right first time is not just the aviation, it's also pharmaceutical industry as well. You just gave me a flashback there to my previous employment. My question's about paragraph 7, the local place plan. So I see that they're being collated at the moment, and we're expecting the finalisation of around 30 of these plans over the next 2 months. I'm just interested in how that will be made available. Will there be a standalone session, or will they be online? How will we get to view the detail that's in those plans? Thank you.
That's all you can.
It's through you, Chair. Thanks for your question, Councillor Cowan. Yeah, I think actually it'd be a really good idea to celebrate the fact that we've managed to do all that work alongside and very much with our communities. So I think it'd be a really good idea to have a kind of all elected member session with the local police plans and celebrating that with the groups that have brought forward these plans. So I'm happy to arrange that around about kind of March, April time.
Thanks for that. Okay, Thanks for the contribution to colleagues for the aircraft industry and the pharmaceutical industry, formerly. I used to work in housing and we didn't always get it right first time. Claire's not here, so I can say it. But any other, Gillian?
Just a quick follow-up. I think that's an excellent suggestion by Karen. I managed to get along to 3 of the public engagement sessions, and you could see the work that was getting done by the Vibrant Community staff. They're engaging with the community. So definitely, if we can celebrate that work and see it coming to its fruition, that would be fantastic.
Excellent. Graham?
I've actually got a question this time. Obviously, we know how difficult it is for the public to get to engage. So when I'm looking at the police efficiency assessment, 900 responses, is there anything we've done differently within that engagement session, or is it something that's just maybe resonated with the public? Just wonder if Karen's got any insight to that.
Thanks. Through you, Chair. Yeah, we have done things differently. I think we've worked a lot harder to try and really engage with the schools. We've put things out through, I don't know what it's now called, EduSpot, I think it's called, but the kind of forums, the apps that the schools have. So we've put out surveys through that, and we've obviously done a lot of work with East Ayrshire Leisure Trust as well. They've been out in the communities really seeking views. So I think what we have done is we've really worked a lot harder to try and make sure that we're getting people engaged in the work that we're doing, and we kind of continue to do that right across the topic areas and across the local development plan process. And if I'm just getting any other suggestions about how we can, improve that even more, then that would be great to hear.
Thanks. That's appreciated. Colleagues, anything else? Okay, can we agree recommendations? Okay, and carry on again, Town of Culture vid 2028.
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide detail on a new opportunity from the UK Government to apply to be UK Town of Culture 2028 and to agree that a Stage 1 Expression of Interest, or EOI, bid be submitted for Kilmarnock. The background is set out in paragraphs 3 to 8, which details the announcement of the first ever UK Town of Culture competition. The competition, led by the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, aims to restore pride in communities. The competition is open to small, medium and large towns, with the winner delivering a vibrant cultural programme. The background also sets out that in January 2023, the Palace Theatre and Grand Hall was awarded £20 million through the UK Government Levelling Up Fund, and that in October 2023, Kilmarnock was awarded £20 million through what is now called the Pride in Place programme. The aspirations of the Pride in Place programme align with those of the UK Town of Culture programme. The redevelopment of the Palace Theatre, the Neighbourhood Board Regeneration Plan and the emerging wider master plan for Kilmarnock Town Centre form, together with our rich history and the exceptional cultural organisations which operate in Kilmarnock and across East Ayrshire, a strong foundation upon which to bid for the UK Town of Culture 2028. Paragraphs 9 to 14 set out detail of the EOI process and high-level detail of the proposed content of a submission for Kilmarnock. Following the EOI stage, shortlisted towns will receive £60,000 to progress their bid, and paragraph 10 sets out proposed partnership arrangements if we're shortlisted. The vision for Kilmarnock focuses on community, innovation, our industrial and built heritage and renewal. Our programme would place food and drink, music, drama, dance and visual art at its core in a place-based way. The programme would align with the Neighbourhood Board Regeneration Plan, Palace Theatre and Grand Hall Regeneration and wider Emerging Town Master Plan, joining physical regeneration with creative confidence and opportunity and building on a joined-up approach. Our initiatives would be shaped around the clearly identified needs of Kilmarnock's residents and generate measurable outcomes aligned with needs focusing on reducing inequalities, increasing participation, improving well-being, strengthening skills, enhancing community cohesion and revitalising the town centre. Subject to the approval of Cabinet, the expression of interest will be submitted to the UK Government in advance of the deadline at the end of this month. The implications are set out in paragraphs 15 to 19 and the recommendations at paragraph 2. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Members, Councillor Linda.
Thanks, Leader. I'll try and not throw a glass of water while the table this time. I want to start by saying I'm absolutely delighted that Kilmarnock is being considered to be put forward for this award. Rightly recognised as the principal town of East Ayrshire, and as a resident, I acknowledge and support that status, and a huge part of me welcomes the bid, as I said. However, it's not the only community within East Ayrshire with significant cultural, historical and economic importance. I've looked at what the criteria is on the UK government website. So it says the strengths of the cultural offer should be showcased, weaknesses should be acknowledged, and ambition to improve should be included. So I think the question is it only Kilmarnock that deserves this opportunity? We've got a wealth of cultural heritage across East Ayrshire. We've got Sturton, the bonnet tune. We've got Darvel, the lace tune. We've got the legacies of the mines and the villages in the south. We've got the Cumnock Tryst. We've got the link to Robert Burns in Mauchline. We've got Alexander Fleming in Darvel, Keir Hardy in Cumnock. There are many, many more. We've actually done no bad when you think back over the years. These places have got a deep-rooted cultural value and clear potential for recognition, but again, they appear to be getting overlooked. So I just want a wee bit of clarity that, going by what I can see on the website, Kilmarnock will qualify for medium town category due to the size of population. So I think the first bit I want to know is, could we submit more than one? And if so, I did note that the small town category is anything under 20,000, so that kind of takes care of every other town, village or anything in between in Ayrshire. So, and finally, I noticed in page 44, paragraph 11, so the draft's at the final stages. So again, have we spent, I mean, what's the current cost and officer time associated with this already? And who made the decision that it was just going to be Kilmarnock that was taken into consideration? Okay, cheers.
Thanks. John?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, obviously across East Ayrshire, we've got a huge kind of wealth of cultural history and a lot of brilliant places and culture and heritage, and I think, you know, fully acknowledge all of that. I think when we looked at the opportunity, we were trying to consider how it might tie in with existing UK government investment and the programmes that they have, and kind of strategically what might be the best approach from that perspective. I think despite the bid at present covering Kilmarnock as the kind of geographical basis, we would be engaging right across East Ayrshire with all the different groups and businesses and communities so that everybody could share in the benefits of the town of culture status if we were to achieve that. In terms of whether we could submit more than one bid, I don't think in terms of the rules there's anything that says we couldn't submit more than one bid, recognising, however, that obviously there will only be one place that actually becomes the town of culture at the end of this. And in terms of officer time, essentially I've been working on it for a number of days, and I'll continue to work on that going forwards. And beyond that, there's been, I guess, no substantial input other than we have also engaged with a number of partners who we've had a couple of workshop sessions with them to seek views around that. But I think all of the work that we've been doing hasn't just been in terms of the Town of Culture bid. It ties in much more widely to the master planning work that we're doing for Kilmarnock, to the work that the neighbourhood board's doing. So, you know, even if we weren't actually to progress through this process, all of that work's actually been really, really important to the vision and the master plan that we're progressing for Kilmarnock. So if we aren't to progress, I don't see any of that as time and effort lost. Thanks.
That's just in terms of clarification, Karen. So there's a small, medium and a large town. So there's only one winner, or is there winners in every category?
Yeah, there are different categories, and there are a number of places that would be shortlisted, but there is only one winner. There's no winner, as I understand it, for each category.
Okay. People want to come in. Councillor Cowan, Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Chair. I think the timing of this bid is excellent as far as the Palace Theatre and Grand Hall project goes, so there's sort of full alignment there. And obviously we would have one eye on the £3 million prize, but I know other areas, it's a highly competitive process, and it'll be across the whole of the UK. But I know when there's been other culture processes like that, I think up the road in Paisley, even if you don't win the prize, going through that process and the focus that it brings to your regeneration activities and building up that culture shouldn't be underestimated. So I'm fully supportive of the paper. Thank you.
Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I mean, I really welcome this, and thank you, Karen, for the report. I mean, with this, we're not just, in my view, launching a bid for Kilmarnock. We're sparking a cultural and economic revolution for East Ayrshire. You know, becoming the UK's first town of culture, in a way, it's our golden ticket to putting Kilmarnock and the East Ayrshire area on the map. It isn't just about putting on a great show. It's about the massive economic injection that this would be felt on the streets of Kilmarnock, as well as in Cumnock. You know, I mean, visitors will flock to the new Palace Theatre, but it won't, in my view, stop there. They'll start exploring the Baird Institute. They'll walk the grounds of Dumfries House. They'll support all the local independent shops and cafes that make Cumnock unique. You know, there's tourism, jobs, skills, and the £3 million prize, you know, really will allow us here in East Ayrshire, in my view, to be able to attract people to live, work, and invest here. You know, the bid belongs to all of us in East Ayrshire, not just Kilmarnock. It's you know, wards right across from Dalmellington to Stewarton, from Kilmarnock to Muirkirk, Cumnock. It's all of us. So let's show the UK that East Ayrshire is really ready to take that centre stage. Thank you, Leader.
Linda.
Thanks, Leader. Sorry, Karen, it was just to come back to you on, thanks for the explanation, but I think my only wee concern is, given the amount of funding that we've already had, like the Palace Theatre and various other things, is it considered that would be favourable going with this, or could that work against us because we may well be up against other towns that have had absolutely nothing given to them? And so, sorry, I should have mentioned that in my first point. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Maben. Through you, Chair. I guess I'm not on the judging panel, so I can't 100% answer that. But what I would say is that I think we have been encouraged to submit a bid, and that it does align really well with the other programmes. And I think it's about each programme being able to kind of show a legacy beyond that, and tying the funding streams together to make the outputs bigger than the individual streams can deliver on their own. We need to go through the process and see.
Thanks. Claire, Councillor.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank Karen for the paper. I'd like to thank Linda and, in fact, everybody's contributions today. It's been really interesting. And I don't have a motto, but back in 1990, I was working in City of Culture in Glasgow, and we were pretty much mocked and ridiculed for even going for it at the time. And out of it came the concert hall, and then Celtic Connections and so much more. And it's now known as a heart of culture throughout the world. So I think this is a sort of excellent form of deja vu for me, seeing what's coming with the time and how well it aligns with the Palace Theatre as well. And I'm sorry we didn't have any motto except the show must go on. So thank you.
Thanks. David, do you want to come in?
It was just an observation, Chair. It was just to kind of, highlight how we've got to this position. If there's external funding out there and we can bid for it, we will bid for it. That's the kind of approach that we're taking. I appreciate that there's opportunities there in terms of where that funding is allocated, but in terms of we're just looking to align it with obviously the neighbourhood board proposals as we promoted. So it was just to give everybody that reassurance. We are working both locally and regionally to try to ensure that any kind of monies that are out there, we can actually work together in partnership with the relevant colleagues and other anchor institutions to try to get that money into to obviously East Ayrshire and Ayrshire as a whole. Thanks.
Thanks. I've got Barry Jiminy in. Barry.
Thank you, Leader. Karen, thank you for the paper. And just to say, obviously very keen to see the bid being made for Kilmarnock. Do echo Councillor Mabin's comments in terms of what other opportunities are there. If we have the opportunity to make more than one bid, maybe we should do that, but given the vast cultural heritage we've got across East Ayrshire. In terms of the bid, if we have been encouraged, and encouraged specifically for Kilmarnock, that is hopefully good news, and I'm sure we would all welcome the judging panel visiting our town to see what it has on offer and see the future potential that it has. But I think just to make clear, wouldn't preclude any other bid being made alongside it if we felt that that was something that we could do. But if you've had specific assurances or specific requests around Kilmarnock, then very keen to hear that, and obviously delighted to support it.
Thanks. Jim, Councillor McMahon.
Thanks, Leah. Certainly welcome all the comments for Councillor Mabin and Councillor Watts, and also the encouragement for David McDowell about that funding if it is out there. I can only imagine the prestige that it would bring if Kilmarnock did win that. However, I see there's an attractive plot of £3 million goes along with it, so the prestige maybe can stay in Kilmarnock, and it might be helpful if we could invest the £3 million in the South Authority and maybe look at another application for one of our own towns in the future.
Thanks, Jim. Who does say was that? Ian, good on.
Thanks, Leader. Can I thank Karen for such an ambitious paper? I think Councillor Maitland hit the nail on the head there. We just have to look up the road to see how Glasgow flourished with being the city of culture, and I think we as local councillors for East Ayrshire have a duty to get behind any bid that shows any part of East Ayrshire in a positive manner. I think all 32 councillors have got a role to play in that, and I think we should all get behind and promote and support anyone in East Ayrshire whenever we get a chance.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Just to follow on some of these comments, the Plan Department are running a series of workshops called Be Inspired, and it's part of the master planning for the town. So I attended one yesterday at the Dick Institute, and the guest speaker was an architect from Glasgow. And that was really quite interesting because it's when someone from outside East Ayrshire comes here and they look at things with a fresh pair of eyes, and he was blown away by the redstone architecture we have in John Finney Street. And he'd gone and done some research about who John Finney actually was, and the fact it was being held in the Dick Institute, which is one of my most favourite heritage buildings that we have. So Kilmarnock gets a bad time in the press and over social media and the things like that. So why shouldn't we be bold? Why shouldn't we lift up our heads? And why shouldn't we celebrate what we've got here? Fantastic culture, fantastic people, fantastic heritage. And if this, like Councillor Maitland says, puts us on the map, then let's go for it.
Absolutely. I think it is, West of Scotland, self-esteem, we hide it under a bushel. We don't, brag about what we do, but I mean, you're absolutely right, Lynn, it's about lifting up your heads. I just, sometimes really, when I see other towns taking things like literature, Tart Noir, we've got the McIlvannies, we've got goodness knows how many other crime fiction right in East Ayrshire. Many of those, and it's following their footsteps in other forms, music and theatre. We've got great people that are working there. And we've got so many young people that are involved in that as well. So so many groups out there that are just looking at how we can get recovery, and we have got a good track record of concentrating in the performing arts and other things. It's about lifting folks' heads and aspirations and getting people to the best they can be. So I think it's about time we just hit just took the detractors and social media face on and just be proud about our town. And if the opportunity arises for the other towns, let's go for it there as well, because there's many other smaller towns there that are just doing some great things in terms of culture. So if there's any expression of interest, that's something we might want to look at. Somebody else need a hand up? Or Councillor Jim, you want back in? Yeah.
Yeah, I did, Leader, thanks. And I was just on when Councillor Cowan mentioned the heritage buildings. I think it would be worthy note at this meeting and express my condolences to the people of Glasgow over what happened in Union Street there at the weekend. We know how they feel because we lost one of our buildings in Kilmarnock Town Centre and it has a devastating impact. So we just to pass on condolences there.
Thanks very much, Jim. And it's maybe not for this paper, but it's just, you know, lessons that can be learned. There's always lessons learned for these kind of things, and that might be subject of maybe further future papers. Anything else? Okay, can we agree recommendations? That's great. And we're now going to the 26-27 Roads Asset Management Plan, Investment and Programme. Jane. Craig.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise Cabinet on the condition of the roads infrastructure and to seek Cabinet approval for the 26-27 programme of works, including carriageway and footway structural maintenance, street lighting, bridge strengthening, traffic, transportation, road safety and fleet. The background is as detailed in paragraphs 3 to 6. Note paragraph 5, elected members, MPs, MSPs were consulted in winter 2025 for schemes to be considered for inclusion in the following year's programmes. A road infrastructure is one of the most valuable council assets. The road assets is valued at 1.7 billion, with the carriageway alone valued at 1.2 billion. A condition of the road network is detailed in paragraph 7 to 22, and to note, the Scottish Roads Maintenance Conditions Survey, SRMCS, is used to classify the road network into one of three categories. Table 1 summarises the RCI results from SRMCS over the last 7 years, with Table 2 broken down for each road category. The lower the percentage, the better the network condition. Figures now received states that the Scottish average is 34.34%. East Ayrshire Council is a slight improvement at 31.2%. It's still ranked 12 out of 32 local authorities. A programme for carriageway and footway structural maintenance is discussed in paragraphs 24 to 33. Schemes identified for servicing incorporates data compiled from the SRMCS, a clerk of work inspection records and fault reports. For 25-26, the Ayrshire Road Alliance was unsuccessful in the timber transport funding. It's our intention again to submit 3 bids when the window opens in mid-March, with the locations identified in paragraph 27. If we are unsuccessful, Ayrshire Road Alliance will still programme the works as indicated in the paper. Table 4 identifies the proposed reprofiled roads budgets for 26-27 to 2030-31. A carriageway and footway structural maintenance programme is as detailed within Appendix 1, with works carried over from 25-26 into a 26-27 programme. And to note that the weather conditions contribute to deteriorating road conditions, and the works carried out by statutory undertakers may result in amendments to the programme. A street lighting is detailed in paragraphs 34 to 41. And for ARA, and to note, over a third of our street lighting columns have exceeded their expected service life, and we have an inspection regime in place, but to make you aware that the risk of further reduction in capital funds. The proposed programme for 26-27 is as detailed in Appendix 2, which identified parts of the network which are in the poorest condition. Again, this may be subject to change. Bridges and culverts is detailed in paragraphs 42 to 49. Table 6 lists the roads-related council structures the Alliance manages. In paragraph 45, results show that within our family group of 9 councils, our BSCI average score is slightly lower than the family group average score. On a Scotland-wide comparison, our score is also slightly lower than the Scottish average score, based on the 32 Scottish councils. A continuing investment in the maintenance of the bridge stock will help maintain and improve this current situation. All structures are subject to a programme of regular inspections to determine their condition, and currently there's 49 bridges that are being monitored with one that are being monitored on a 2-monthly basis, 5 on a monthly basis, and 1 on a fortnightly basis. Our bridges and culvert backlog is detailed in paragraphs 50 to 51. In 2025, the gross replacement cost for the structures asset was estimated at 205.5 million. At 2026, the estimated maintenance backlog of 55.55 million is summarised in table 9 for the East Ayrshire Roads bridge stock. A road slips is in paragraph 52, as discussed, with a £2 million one-off funding which we received in 25-26. Our works are currently ongoing and will carry forward into a 26-27 programme. Bridge and Culvert Strengthening Programme. Our budget is identified within paragraphs 53 to 56 and within Appendix 3 of the report contains details of the Bridges Capital Programme, which comprises of 17 projects for 26-27 and how they relate to the funding identified. Our traffic and transportation road safety is detailed in paragraphs 57. In paragraph 57, our proposed delivery programmes are contained within the report and the funding streams are as listed. The proposed programmes are consistent with the national, regional and local transport strategies and the policies and take cognizance of the road casualty trends. Our road casualty trends is from paragraphs 58 to 64. And sadly, there was 4 fatal accidents in 2025, although these remain provisional until the final validation by Police Scotland and Transport Scotland. Table 11 indicates the road casualty trends from 2004 to 2025 for all ages, with Table 12 capturing child casualty data. Other East Ayrshire road casualty information of note in 2025 is enlisted in paragraph 64. Our funding programmes, the funding sources for traffic transportation and road safety programmes is identified and detailed in paragraph 65. East Ayrshire Transportation Capital Investment Programme is as discussed in paragraph 66 to 71. To note in paragraph 7, Ayrshire Road Alliance is working in partnership with F&PM to deliver a range of road safety schemes within the vicinity of various schools, with further projects to improve wider safe walking routes continues to be progressed. A road safety programme for 26-27 is set out in Appendix 5 and has been prepared based on a combination of analysis from the annual accident review and locations of concerns raised by Police Scotland, elected members, the public and Ayrshire Road Alliance officers. The priority in the programme will be given to evidence-led schemes arising from the annual accident review. Transport Scotland bus infrastructure is detailed in paragraphs 72 to 75, with funding provided annually from Transport Scotland for the projects. Paragraphs 76 and 77 discusses SPT and Sustrans. Transport Scotland Road Safety Improvement Fund. This funding is provided annually from Transport Scotland. Paragraph 78, which focuses on the safe systems, measures to help support casualty and or risk reduction across the road network. Transport Scotland Active Travel Infrastructure is detailed in paragraphs 79 to 81, and this details a tiered system of funding. There's no formal confirmation for Tier 1 direct block grant, however, it's expected to be similar to value to 2025-26. Bid applications for Tier 2 funding to the value of 9.43 million has been submitted and continues to deliver the 5 projects as detailed in Appendix 5. Our transport and fleet is as in paragraphs 82 to 86. The main point to note is in paragraph 85 with the Pan Ayrshire EVIF project. This is a massive exercise which with the expectation that evaluation has been concluded and the contract award date is anticipated to be March 26. Our 26-27 fleet replacement is detailed in paragraphs 87 to 90. Our work continues with departments to operate vehicles on their replacement plans. Our focus for 26-27 will look to finalise the 39 remained owned fossil fuel small vehicles, but also move to include larger vehicles. Beyond 25-26, the current estimates that the electric cars and small vans may reach price parity with ICE vehicles by 26-27. The hire fleet is as detailed in paragraphs 93 to 95. Our transport will also look to work with other services to reduce the number of vehicles on hire. The Ayrshire Road Alliance recommendations are contained in paragraph 2. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. I've got a couple of questions more in here. Just comments that you made there about the fatalities. They'll have to be validated because obviously we've got, there's been issues in the A76. In particular, we're having a dialogue just now with Transport Scotland and the Minister, Transport Minister. Are these some of the ones that have happened fairly recently on that, on the 76? And I hope that we can use that as evidence that we really need something done pretty quick to combat some of the safety issues in the 76.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, these are 2025 figures, but we do get notified of fatal accidents or serious accidents. Our traffic section do work with our police liaison officer on site to determine the factors. And again, the subject goes to the reports go to the Procurator Fiscal or whatever, in Transport Scotland.
I just want to be reassured that we were able to use these figures when we're arguing the case for resources from the government and Transport Scotland.
Yeah,
that's mainly it. And just another one, a wee bit just about my own ward, there was yet another serious accident in Bonnet Road, just next to the cafe, and I know that you have a scheme that you're going to consultation with just now, and I'm just hopefully there's possible resources within that we can, at least to put a permanent crossing there, which we go to some way to prevent any. We've had fatalities there in the past, and we see this, that was just another one. It was a near miss, and just, I think the community would look for some reassurance there.
Yeah, there's a scheme already in place for that and money set aside for that. So it's just going through its kind of consultation process. Leader.
That's helpful. Councillor Douglas, Barry.
Thank you, Leader. Just a couple of points. First of all, absolutely echo everything the Leader has said relative to the A76, and certainly you would have the Labour Group support in anything we can do to improve the A76 for both drivers and pedestrians. Just a couple of points I wanted to raise relative to the funding for our roads and pavements across East Ayrshire. One question is around the timber transport funding, because what I've noted is nearly 40% of the proposed roads improvements are in the Alnwick ward this year, but I see a big chunk of that is coming from timber transport funding. So is that dependent on that funding? I note that Ward 2, Kilmarnock North in particular, in terms of roads and pavements, nothing, zero for both, which I think is quite disappointing. In terms of the ward I represent, in Ward 4, I do welcome McDonald Drive being resurfaced. It's been something that has been long asked for by myself, other ward members and the Community Council, probably for the last 8 years. And I do really welcome that Furnace Court pavements are being resurfaced in Hereford, following the local community there, working with myself a number of years ago to get the street actually adopted. The street lighting was adopted, but the actual road wasn't, and that was a long campaign with the residents, but we got there in the end. In terms of the bus infrastructure comments, I have had verbal assurances from officers of ARA that the bus stop at McPhail Drive opposite the Scotmid would be improved, potentially relocated or at least improved there, because there are a number of cases where constituents in wheelchairs have actually had the footrest on the wheelchairs broken because the buses can't lower at that spot, and we know there's a big problem there in terms of parking. So I would urge that in terms of bus infrastructure that is given a priority for this year if possible. So overall, I want some clarity around that. Disappointed for the people in Kilmarnock North. Disappointed for the people in Kilmarnock East and Hereford in terms of just 2% of that funding for this year. It does seem heavily weighted towards Ward 1 this year, and certainly in the pavements, I think over 50% of the funding is proposed in Ward 1. I just wonder if there's a particular reason for that, because certainly from looking at previous papers, I don't note that there's been any dearth of funding for Ward 1 in particular, but is there a particular reason why? So a bit disappointed in the lack of probably equity in some of that funding, but I do know in terms of roads, a significant chunk of that might well be from timber transport. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Through you, Chair. So Alnwick ward had a lot of money set aside for it in 2025-26, which there couldn't be schemes carried out in those locations because of waterworks that were happening. So some of the schemes that are carried forward into this year were from previous years. So for instance, last year in 25-26, only £26,000 was spent on roads in Alnwick. And hence why it's getting a little bit more of its share this year, because it's carried forward those schemes that we couldn't complete. The timber transport funding, there's around 500,000 schemes that are that are in our timber transport bid, and if successful, those will be accommodated from that, and then that will allow some reserve schemes to move in. If we can't get the timber transport bid approved, then we would still want to carry out those works because they're quite high profile routes and that are needing work done on them, so we'd still want to do that. With regards to your bus infrastructure, was it Wheatfield Drive you mentioned?
McPhail Drive.
McPhail. I've got a note of that, Councillor Douglas, and I'll make sure that that gets passed on to our traffic team and that we include that in the bus improvements coming forward.
Councillor.
Thanks, Leader. Just looking for a wee update, and I know this will be of interest to Councillor McMahon. There was an experiment carried out a good number of years ago on a stretch of the road from Dunlop House towards Nielsen, round about the quarry area, using waste byproducts, plastics mixed in with the tar. This was a road I used a lot when I still worked for BT, and I was amazed at how there was no deterioration on it, particularly given it had unsupported verges. I've seen roads that have been resurfaced in the past, and they do start to break away into the grass verge. This road looks as if it was put down, 6 months ago, and it's been down for, I would guess, maybe the best part of 10 years. I just wonder if any research has been done to maybe thinking about rolling out this method, because it does seem to last particularly well.
Thank you, Councillor Linton, through you, Leader. So I think what you're referring to is it's plastic pellets that are added as an additive into the bitumen mix. I know when I was at East Renfrewshire, we also trialled that. The issue with that going forward was that it never had its HAPAS certificate, which is necessary for councils and anybody, in fact, to use those products. They have to be certificated. So although trials were carried out, the product never ever got its certification that allowed it to be used long term. I wasn't aware of the site you mentioned, and it's interesting to know that that is holding up very good. The latest advice we got from Scots was that it still didn't have any certification moving forward. I think it was recycled plastics from waste streams that were being used to add into bituminous mixes to act as a sort of strengthener. I think one of the main problems was with the recycling of it. When it came to its end of life, you had a substance, you had a tar basically that contained plastics, and it was all about how you then disposed of that in future years. That was the main issue.
I think you're right. From memory, I know that Dumfries, it was based in, was it Lockerbie? And I know it was in Dumfries and Galloway, and I know Carlisle, we went down to visit at the time, Carlisle City, and the council used it extensively. But there was that issue with, just when the road deteriorated, there was plastics that were going into well, SEPA in our case. They would be looking at, just looking at the drainage there. But interesting, noting it was in the East Renfrewshire boundary, that you do notice the road deteriorates. Hate to say it when you get into East Renfrewshire from our side, so it's maybe worth, that there was some kind of merit in it, but it's worth maybe investigating a wee bit further. Okay, so I've got Councillors Maitland, McMahon and Watts, so Claire.
Thank you very much, Leader. And I recognise Barry's disappointment in wards, but I think it's very similar to when we had the police space investment. Myself and Councillor Cowan felt that wards 3 and 5 had been left out ever so slightly. This time, however, I am delighted to see that roads are being done in Ward 5, and I'm especially from elected members' request for Cheesewood Head Road. Over the last few years, there has been a lot of development, from the renovation in Short Lees to the building of Watt Rigs to the Tinto Way to St Michael's to the Bridge House Hill, and this has all had a very heavy impact on a concentrated and densely populated area. So I think these people deserve the roads we're getting. However, my request is, can we finish off Cheesewood Head Road, please? It seems a shame not to take it all the way to the bottom. So thank you very much from Ward 5. I'm sure my colleague in the back will be agreeing. Obviously, we want more. So it has been a very heavy impact. And I would also like to just bring to light that our roads, our residential roads, we're getting used by industrial traffic to bypass an existing traffic management scheme. And I'd like to thank roads for coming in and reinforcing that. So we've had an awful lot of work for which we are pleased, but our roads are in a terrible state because of it. So I appreciate this. And yes, can we have Treeswood Head Road finished? Thank you.
Thanks. And I like you mentioned earlier, didn't you? You said word 3. I think you meant word. Yeah, word 2. But no, just and when we were, I would agree, you know, in terms of, but I don't think it's any coincidence that a number of the roads that are here is where there's been a lot of construction traffic, and there's plenty of, you know, in terms of the Cunningham housing build up the top of the Treeswood Head Road. It's no coincidence that it's deteriorated right down. But I was curious why it stopped at Campsie Road and not went the full length. So that's maybe something to consider. Further on. Also, I'd see there's a typo here. I see instead of Sunderland Drive, we've got Sunderland Drive. That's just in case we know where that is. Okay, who have we got now? I'll get Councillor McMahon, Jim. No, the mic's not, Jim.
I had it. That's it, back on again. You'd think I would have learnt by now. So thanks very much for the paper, Craig, the detail in it. If I could just pick up on Councillor Linton's comments round about that road. You're probably right, Ian. I think it would be in the region of maybe 7, 8 years ago. The issue that Jane raises round about not being certificated, it was a new product at the time. I think the proof of the pudding for us is where it should be certificated is having a look at it now. And as Ian described it well, you'd have thought it just been put down 6 months ago. As far as the microplastics can go, the argument at the time was you would get them for rubber equally as you would get them for plastic. But the Borno health hazards was my understanding at the time when that was put down. So just to pick up on that again, it would be nice to revisit that again as far as the plastics go, if we can get them out of our system. If I can pick up on the earlier comments of the leaders round about the 76, I absolutely echo the comments that it made. I was encouraged finally that 20 mile an hour has been introduced both in Mauchline and Newcombe as of last Friday. I've been up 3 times, and it's really encouraging that when you sit behind a car, they're doing 20 mile an hour. I'm not going to say they're all going to do that, but how you going to enforce it? If one car does it, then everybody else has got to follow suit when you come on behind that. So that was really encouraging. I suppose for me, Craig, I think I'd asked the question before, the concern about the bridge. That's done to a 2-week inspection, and what kind of risk does that bring along with that 2-week inspection? And is it on a major road? Is it an A, B, C class road? And I suppose the big one for me is on the expenditure. If we make that comparison for 2019 and the £5 million and the subsequent year 4 that we invested in more roads, yes, it certainly paid dividends. But when we look at what as budgets get tighter, what we're placing in the £2.3 million, and if I could use that comparator that I used earlier on with 24 million pound for the growth deal and what it's worth now, what we're investing now, that £2.3 million is roughly about 34% what we did in the earlier years. So it's worth noting to maintain the steady state that the Scottish Road Condition Maintenance Survey said we would need about £8.5 million. So yes, our roads are good now. We've had a reasonably mild winter, but I think it's something that we should be aware of going forward as far as budgets go on with roads and where that spend would need to go and be considered again. So I suppose the question for me, Craig, is round about the bridge with the 2-week inspection.
Yep, through you, Chair. So the road's the B730, 10 at Little Mill Bridge near Rankinson. The works have been delayed for years due to sort of land and utility issues, but the land agreement's now been concluded, so it is currently at the design, and it will be getting designed to get constructed in future years.
Good. I have Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you to Ara and Jane for this report. Whilst I acknowledge the hard work that Ayrshire Roads Alliance is doing, we need really to be honest with ourselves, and more importantly with the residents of Cumnock, New Cumnock and the wider East Ayrshire area. You know, the figures before us within this report are stark. We are looking at a maintenance backlog estimated at around 53 million just to bring our network up to standard. Yet the plan we are discussing today really only provides a fraction of the 8.5 million that's needed just to keep the status quo. We aren't just treading water, in my view, we are sinking into the very potholes that we're trying to fix. You know, if we talk about the reality on the ground, or rather the holes in it, in 2023-24 alone, pothole reports in East Ayrshire skyrocketed to over 3,100. That's more than doubling in 2 years. So while we've spent over 113,000 on repairs in 2025, with hundreds of these schemes, and some of them in my ward, we're literally just doing a patch and mend approach and a sticking plaster on a broken limb. You know, our residents are paying the price, you know, and they're paying for it in damaged tyres, broken suspensions, and dangerous swerving to avoid craters on their way, you know, on their way to take children to school, to get to work. You know, for cyclists or motorists, these aren't just inconveniences. They are life-threatening hazards. I mean, I was coming back from Catrin on the back road the other day, Sunday, and I must have looked as if I was drunk driving, trying to swerve around the holes in the road. You know, current survey data indicates that 31.2% of our roads, that's nearly a third of our network, requires maintenance treatment. If we continue with this level of underinvestment going forward, you know, we are essentially managing decline. We cannot expect to build a fairer economy or safer communities when literally the foundations of our transport system are crumbling. We are investing in active travel, infinitive loops in Kilmarnock, which are really, really welcome. But what about the basic right of a parent in Cumnock to push a pram, or a resident using a wheelchair without navigating a lunarscape of ruts and cracks? You know, a plan that leaves 1/3 of our streetlights operating beyond their street life, and a third of our roads in repair, is just not realistic. We need to stop viewing road maintenance as an optional extra. It is an essential frontline service, just like the bin collections or social care. We need greater transparency, you know, ensuring that rural wards like Cumnock and New Cumnock and Dalmellington and Ward 7, you know, Balloch Mile, aren't left behind by central prestige projects. We need to lobby, when we have a new Scottish government, we need to lobby them for a multi-year settlement that actually acknowledges the £1.7 billion asset that we have. You know, our residents don't want excuses or realigned capital plans, in a sense. They want roads that they can drive on without fear. They want a council that listens to what they're saying. And, you know, we are literally asking ARA to provide a gold-plated service without really giving them the funds, in my view, that they actually need to do that. But we know that ARA
Neil,
are doing a really good job. Thank you.
I know we all feel, you know, quite emotional about in terms of roads.
I know,
obviously.
yeah.
But have you a question?
No, it was just really a statement on the report that,
right.
You know, I don't think we're putting enough money into
that's,
it, really.
That's fine. That's fine. No, but okay, I mean, we do need money put in our roads. I think we'd acknowledge it, and just, you know, and if there are any life-threatening and road faults in your area, I hope we report them. But just to note on page 49, although we have issues in terms of resource, nevertheless, Jane and the team have managed to, from 5 years ago, we've moved from 25th in the ranking of the 32 Scottish authorities to 12th. Though, you know, there still is an issue in terms of roads, but relatively speaking, we're in a better position relatively. But that doesn't, you know, we do need to work in safety as well. I think I think for the first time the infinity loop has been mentioned again. I think we do need to have a discussion just where we are with that, because there's 2 or 3 pots of money, and I think we need a future report just to see what we are doing with that funding. I know we're getting external funding for it, but it is sizable, and it's been on the go for quite a period of time. And I think we need a kind of an up to date report. So I think it's reasonable to ask that. I've got Councillor Cowan first, then Councillor Lutton.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Craig for this report. I just want to recognise the work that has been done. Well, it started last year actually, and it's about to be implemented hopefully in this financial year. The road safety improvements round about the 3 primaries in Ward 2, ARA's response to that and their interaction with the 3 parent councils has been exemplar. If you can indulge me for a moment, on page 70, Todd Hill Avenue in my ward is on the reserve list, and it talks about specific junctions on that road. I would ask that the junction with Meiklewood Road gets looked at. As a resident recently said to me at the Tenants Residents Group, there's been patching done there, but it's like driving on the surface of the moon. So if Meiklewood Road junction could get looked at for Todd Hill Avenue, that would be appreciated. And also I know that there's some pedestrian pavement pathway work getting done for Alton Hill Avenue, and again that was highlighted as some safety issues as part of the walkabout that we did with the parent representatives of the schools. So I'd like to acknowledge that work done by ARA and thank them for their time.
Thanks, that'll be passed to staff. Ian.
Thanks, Leader, and you'll be pleased to hear I'll keep it extremely brief. It was just a follow-up on my earlier query, Jane, about the Nielsen Road. I mean, I suspect it was chosen deliberately because it must be one of the highest sections of roads in East Ayrshire. It's west-facing on quite a steep incline, so it's really getting the weather. And I think the fact that it has stood up so well for 7-8 years, Jim, thanks for the clarification, is testament to how robust the product is.
Thanks, Councillor Linton. I'll certainly look into that. I suspect it would be a company called McGreeber, I think, at the time it was doing the trial. So I'll certainly look into the background to that and see where they are with any kind of half-pass approvals, etc.
Yeah. And it'd be interesting to hear back. I know Carlisle were using them quite extensively. We went down, so that'd be useful to hear any feedback from them. I've got Councillor McMahon, Jim.
Yeah. Just briefly, Leader, just to come back to Councillor Watts' comments, I think I expressed my concerns just as I summed up where we currently sit and what it would need. Councillor Watts is aware of the budgets that we have. He knows the pressures on each service to grandstand like that. It was absolutely ridiculous. And some of the comments we made, we know the conditions of our roads. And they do sit, as you pointed out, Leader, we're sitting 12th in that list. I have been in Dumfries and Galloway recently, and they're pretty poor. I can assure you where most of the roads that we've got in East Ayrshire are reasonably well maintained to the best of what we can with the budgets that we've got to work within. I don't know what Councillor Watts, what you would suggest, perhaps we take something else for somewhere else. It could be for education, could it be for health and social care, but we've got to work within our budgets, so I'm sure you're well aware.
Okay, thanks, Jim. I've got Councillor Maitland first, then I'll bring in Councillor Watts.
Thank you. Just to point out that it would cost £16.8 billion just to fix all the potholes that are in the UK at the moment. And it would be nice that if we call it road tax, but it's actually vehicle excise duty, if that could in some way be ring fenced towards the potholes, and that would be a UK government initiative. And I'd like to see something like that along the lines instead of the money going straight into the general coffers. Thank you very much.
It's clear. Neil.
Yes, Leader, sorry. I wasn't trying to grandstand in a sense. I was just trying to make the point that, you know, we do have an issue with potholes, and we do have a massive issue with potholes. But it wasn't to denigrate from the really good work that ARA do within the budget that they have. But that's all I'll say.
Thanks. Okay, Councillor Brown.
sorry, I'm going to keep it going, but just like Councillor Douglas, I'd just like to express my disappointment in the allocation for the road resurfacing programme in Ward 4. But I just want to highlight, Councillor Douglas brought up McDonald Drive. I'm really glad it's come off the reserve list for last year. It's going to be done. That road got tore up due to the works that got done at the William McAvaney campus. It's been like that for about 8 years. And I just want to ask her, what are we doing to ensure, and I know that was our development, but there's developments all up and down the authority where the roads are getting tore up by developers, and we need to ensure that they're putting into the pot of money to fix the roads. I just want to see what we can do to try and make that happen.
Yeah. See that all over East Ayrshire, just where there has been developments, you know, I quite agree. And I think in some cases, you know, it should be, we should be trying to recoup some of the costs for the developers themselves. Jane.
Yeah, Councillor Barton, through you, Leader. If there are developments that we do expect high levels of construction traffic, then we can do sort of pre-dilapidation surveys, so we can survey the road beforehand, and then we can ask for extraordinary repair costs afterwards. But it's very difficult in some cases to pinpoint who's caused the damage when you've got, especially on our higher category roads that are used by large vehicles all the time, to try and pin down one suspect, if you like, as who's caused the damage can often be an issue. But we do have powers under the Road Scotland Act that we can pursue that.
Thanks. Linda.
Just on the back of it, Graham said, I totally agree with that and what Jane's saying, but I think it needs to go further than that, because you have the likes of companies, I don't want to advertise any of them, but you've got utility companies and things like that. They're coming along and digging up roads. And let's face it, I mean, I could probably do a better job of some of the repairs that we see. So maybe that's something that needs to be pushed harder. I don't know how we do it, whether it has to be legislation or what, I don't know. But you see them when they come and they dig up a bit for broadband or whatever, right? And then they repair the absolute area that they've worked on, instead of thinking, well, there might be an impact. And I think that's causing a lot of the issues as well.
We've had loads of complaints. I just, in the last few months, just with public utilities, and I think we're constantly at them, but I think that's a fair point. I remember one time, I think that was Keith Stewart's sole job, was pursuing utility companies. I don't know if we're still doing that, Jane.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Mayburn, through you, Leader. We do have Clerk of Works, whose part of their duties is to inspect utility companies' works, and under the New Roads and Street Works Act, utility companies have to adhere to a code of practice and have to do reinstatements in a certain way. The good news around that is that the legislation changed this year, so instead of the utility companies only being liable for a 2-year warranty period on any reinstatements, they are now liable for a 6-year warranty period, which is good news from our perspective, because sometimes something that will hold up for 2 years would then in its 3rd year deteriorate. So there is that element to it, is that there is legislation that they must follow in terms of the reinstatement. We can, unless we have put a road restriction on, we can't determine the width of the track that they have to do. But for instance, if we've resurfaced a road and they have to come in within 2 years of that resurfacing, then we do ask them to do what we call a full panel reinstatement. So instead of just a track, they have to do a full width. But we're governed by that legislation, if you like, the New Roads and Street Works Act, as to what we can ask and can't ask utility companies to do in terms of their reinstatements.
Okay, thanks for that, Jane. That's helpful. That's good to, but good news there to hopefully end with. Can we agree the recommendations? Great stuff. And go to the next item, which is management and oversight of external funding and community grants. Ian.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, members. Members will recall when considering progress against the Early Intervention Prevention Fund last year that officers were remitted to look at further strengthening our arrangements for supporting communities to access external funding opportunities. More recently, as part of the service review of the Corporate Support Service that was approved by Cabinet in October 2025, it was noted that work had commenced to review existing provision and to scope out the resources that may be required. This report now presents the outcome from that further work. By way of background, at paragraph 7, the current arrangements for awarding funds to external groups are described and notes that there are different arrangements across a number of services and the Leisure Trust, everything from the Place-Based Investment Fund, Anti-Poverty and Inequality Fund to the community grants managed through the Council's Grants Committee. At paragraph 11, it is noted that the former Community Investment Officer role based in vibrant communities, which provided professional support to elected members and communities and supported community organisations in applying for grant funds, was deleted as part of service efficiency savings in 2021. Paragraph 12, members notes that there has been a steady growth in the income that community organisations have been able to attain, peaking at over £9 million in 2024. The key action that is proposed as the main outcome from the recent review is to propose structural and system-based change that will secure improvements and efficiencies in all of the Council's grants and external funding arrangements. At the heart of this will be the development of a new digital management information system that will strengthen our arrangements for attracting external funding, support our communities access financial support, and simplify the grant-making processes, including the award, compliance monitoring and assurance arrangements across the Council. This will serve as a single end-to-end platform that would support applicants and employees. The system-based solution will provide a customer-centric single grant application form, irrespective of the fund applied for. It would be available on the Council website and include clear guidance and advice throughout the whole application process, from application through the award and then the compliance monitoring. For applicants, the system would lessen the burden on community capacity, reduce complexity of navigating the requirements of different funds, reduce reliance on applicant being aware of all funds which they are eligible for, instead allowing them to automatically be included in any funding stream that they meet the criteria for. Rather than using Early Intervention and Prevention Fund that was originally intended for this proposal, it is noted that the costs for this system-based solution will be met from central held balances, with recurring costs met from existing budgets. With those introductory comments, Chair, happy to answer any questions. Recommendations are at paragraph 3 for members' consideration. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Ian. Has there been any kind of work just where we are in comparison to other local authorities and in terms of uptake of grants? Because I think, maybe not very recently, but at one time I was told from other sources that there had been a kind of drop in terms of in terms of area locality, in terms of drawing down external funding.
Thanks, Chair. As part of the work I conducted, we never looked beyond other than our own arrangements, although I know that the WINOG group that's referenced in the report today, that group of officers that come together from other services, are conscious of and aware of that benchmarking work that we've done with other councils. So, but I could maybe look at that in a wee bit more detail, Chair, if that's something that you would like more information on. Thanks.
I mean, obviously it's about capacity building, and we want to make sure. I think that was one of the kind of that all, you know, when we frequently see some of these, it's often just the same kind of organisations, the same communities that get, you know, and we'd like to see a kind of an even spread, you know. And I think that was one of the ambitions, you know. Linda.
Thank you, Leader. I was looking at the bit about the new digital management information system. I welcome that because I know, being an elected member and sometimes being the first point of contact with very confused groups out and about in the ward, that they do struggle sometimes knowing what form to fill out, what information's needed, and they don't always get it right, and sometimes things have to get returned. So I think in that respect, I would totally welcome this. The only thing that I would ask is let's make sure that they know exactly what they're doing. But from an elected member point of view, can we maybe be included in that as well? Because, as I say, we are often first point of contact, so it would be really good if they're coming to us and asking that we at least know that the information we're giving them is absolutely spot on. But I mean, here's to streamlining processes and less errors. That's always a good thing.
Agree with that, Ian.
Thanks, Leader. I just agree with what Linda's just said there. I mean, I think, you know, we see in the Grants Committee, there's folk that are brilliant at applying for grants, and there's folk that aren't brilliant. And I think a kind of levelling process would be really useful. I think there is external money to be chased after, and we should be chasing it hard, because if it didn't get spent in East Ayrshire, it's getting spent somewhere else. So I think we really need to up our game in this. And I think this is a good starting point, but I think, you know, it might be that we need to go beyond this paper, because the more external funding we bring into East Ayrshire, the better.
Absolutely, and you know, we know the situation with the renewable energy fund, and you know, there's neighbouring authorities that, and even within East Ayrshire, there's inconsistencies there that we need to try and make sure we get the best deal for our communities. Was it Elaine? Did you have your?
Thanks, Chair, and Councillor Litton just took the words out of my mouth. I think this paper is a good start to enhancing the approach to the funds that are administered by the Council. And I'm pleased to see the collaboration there with the Leisure Trust. I think that's a good link. I'm not sure whose role it is to scan the landscape for further opportunities, which picks up on the point by the leader. So that might be someone in your wider investment network office group, but obviously I haven't picked that detail up for the paper. So yeah, if there are extra funds out there, we need to be chasing them, and we need to be doing that in an assertive way. A question about the digital management system: is that a commercially purchased system database, or is it an in-house system? And the reason I'm asking that is for what opportunity do we have for future flexibility if we want to develop that. And the other thing is, although we've got the collaboration there with the Remake Kilmarnock Neighbourhood Board and other organisations, can we capitalise on other community planning partnerships? So one example that springs to mind is the police have a cashback for communities. So there's regular funding schemes out there that I don't believe East Ayrshire is getting its fair share for, and we're certainly not challenging it. Or as Councillor Linton pointed out, perhaps the groups don't have the capacity to go chasing that funding. So yeah, definitely a good start to enhancing our approach, but I think we've all got aspirations to go a bit further. Thank you.
300%. Neil, sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, I welcome anything that makes it easier for community councils or other organisations to ask for money to improve their communities. I am conscious that while we do have hard-working community councils out there, we have gaps in the landscape where we used to have community councils. So certain parts of our communities will not be served. So how are we looking at supporting our communities to introduce new community councils in order to feed into this this landscape where we can get that money into the heart of our communities? Might be a question for another day, but do we have a sort of an answer for that?
It's a fair question, Neil. I mean, we've got gaps in terms of coverage of community council, we've got gaps in terms of tenants and residents organisations, and you know, it's about building capacity, I suppose. Ian.
Thanks, Chair. There's a number of comments there, maybe touch on one or two of them as well. Just start with Councillor Ingall's point there about community councils. Clearly, as part of the work we've done, we've involved really closely colleagues in East Ayrshire Leisure Trust, as it is now, but the former Vibrant Communities team and Craig Fulton and others, and the support that they continue to provide to not just community councils and to stimulate that activity, but any community group as well. So just a reassurance that that's still very much a priority for that service, and that will continue. Councillor Cowan mentioned, is it an external system? Is it an internal system? So the intention is that it'll be an externally purchase system. We've already started early investigations of what's out there on the market, and there are a couple of them that are built for this purpose and that are used by a majority of other councils. So that's the proposal, that would be a purchased-in system as well. Yes, there are opportunities to link this with partners. We've mentioned a couple in the report, but I think your point about the police and cashback for communities, so another one, I'll take that away through the CPP arrangements we have. I can make that contact with police around that. I think they have their own arrangements in-house for that, but it's whether or not it's reflecting the current provision for East Ayrshire, then I'll pick that up. Councillor Mabin mentioned the links to support for groups and also involving elected members. That absolutely, for the rollout of this, we know that groups come to elected members, and that is often the point of contact to accessing some of these funds. So we'll try and make sure that members are as involved in the rollout and the transition to these new arrangements as possible, so you can answer some of those questions or signpost people and groups to officers as well. And Councillor Linton's point around maximising external funding as well, absolutely. There's a recognition in the report that, and we've heard already about, the Cultural Town UK Award, and so officers are, and usually it's around professional disciplines, but we are always looking, horizon scanning for what money is coming. Economic growth is another really good example of where we're doing that, sometimes on a pan-Ayrshire basis, sometimes on an East Ayrshire basis. So absolutely, and the intention around the strategic oversight that's mentioned in the report at paragraph 24 is absolutely about capturing that, and where there are opportunities for mostly the significant amounts of money, the large millions of pounds that we can attract. And again, we've got a very good track record in doing that, and we would want to continue that. This system-based approach is really about addressing the point that Councillor Linton also mentioned, which is there are some organisations in our communities, some individuals that are very well catered for in this. They have the skills, they have the experience, but for every one of those, there are others that are not as experienced or have the capacity, and we think this will balance that out a wee bit. So thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Ian. Okay, Lynn.
Just picking up on the last comment there from Ian and also Councillor Ingram's earlier ones. I've been one of the community volunteers who's spent hours and hours of unpaid work, not just applying for these grants, but then once you get that, your job doesn't finish then, because you have to monitor it and you have to report back. And it is a huge burden. And Councillor Ingram pointed out sometimes we have gaps. Even when there are groups there, it falls on the same shoulders each time. And I know it's not relevant to this paper or perhaps even the council anymore. It probably does sit with vibrant communities. So that is another area that's interrelated to this that I think we do need to be looking at if we want to do the best for people in our community. So I just want to stress that point. I don't see how this data management system to enhance how we internally in the council manage them help that community link. I'm not convinced by that, but I accept everything that's in the paper, and I do believe it is the right approach. Thank you.
Okay, can we just go back to the recommendations? Can we agree the recommendations? Okay, can I move exclusion of press and public? And can I ensure that recording has stopped, Rab?